Shalom, Israel. Grace and blessing from God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, be unto you. All praise to the Most High that we made it another week to another Sabbath day. And what can I say, folks? Live streaming things happen. So, Lord's will, we're good now. Let me see how we're doing. Yeah, so we're good on YouTube. Praise the Most High for that. And yeah, they had changed some things around, and it is what it is. Either way, all praise, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father. We do so in the name of His only begotten Son and by His Holy Ghost. All right. So, with that, we're almost 5 minutes into the hour. So, y'all bear with me while I'll check and see how it's looking on y'all's end. Y'all should be good to go though. If it's good on my end, it should be good on y'all's end. So, let me check this out before we officially get started. Oh, okay. I see. Are we actually on YouTube? We appear to be on YouTube, but the stream may not be public, which is odd. You'd think it would be. I changed the settings and whatnot. There still may be an issue here. Let me see. Yeah. So that's what it is. It's not public because they changed my settings and won't allow me to do that. So yeah, let me fix this. Y'all forgive me. And I'll just make that public. Now maybe we should be all right and good to go. Perhaps. All right. So where are we at? Are we live? Are we good to go? I'm not even sure at this point. Good Lord. Lord help us. Lord please. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we are or not. It says that we are public now. I'm just gonna have to take its word for it, I guess. And YouTube always trying to change things up, make things more difficult for their users, I suppose. Where are we at? Yes, okay. All praises to the Most High. We appear to be live on YouTube. How's the sound? How's everything going? Where are we at? Yes. Okay. All praises to the Most High. Finally. Live. See, these devils, they always trying to change things up. It is what it is. Y'all, if y'all have seen these consistently, y'all know that I am not a fan of technology in general. And yeah, Lord's will, one day we won't have to worry about these things. Change things up, make things more difficult for. Yeah, so we're good. We're good all around. All praise to the Most High for that. Unfortunately, we have to use this world, not abusing it. I wish we didn't even have to use it at all, but here we are. So, with all that preamble, I had literally just seen breaking news that Trump received a the inaugural FIFA Peace Medal, which FIFA, if you know, is a soccer league, is the International Soccer League. Apparently, they're handing out peace medals now. It's completely ridiculous, especially when we get into what we're gonna read tonight. These articles that we're gonna read tonight. What's going on with his administration? But hey, we're closing out Hanukkah, so Hanukkah will end tomorrow evening. So we gathered together, and it was amazing. It was wonderful. The feast, the food, the gifts. It was all wonderful. So all praise to the Most High for that. Y'all should be celebrating it because it is a joyous and wonderful thing. The Feast of Dedication, as it is also known. So we're closing that out, and I do want to say that I'm gonna release some music fairly soon. I wanted to release it during Hanukkah, but it's not. I ain't got all the bells and whistles, so to speak. The music's done. I just need to do all the other stuff that goes with it, like album art and distribution, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if y'all gonna see it until Purim, maybe, because I didn't release it by Hanukkah. Maybe I'll still release it like at the either the end of this Gregorian year or the beginning of next year of the Gregorian calendar. But sometime between now and Purim, y'all be able to hear at least some of it, if not the whole Second Chronicles of Ezekiel. All right. So with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into it. I apologize for the technical difficulties and my tardiness that was caused by the technical difficulties. But we're going to go ahead and get into this story. Which one should we get into first? Let's get into the immigration stuff first, because we talked a little bit about it last week. Not too much, or more specifically, we talked about what happened with the National Guard and that whole situation. But I got mostly articles tonight. Of course, we're gonna show the scriptures as well, how this fulfills prophecy and where things are going. But 4 different articles I want to touch on tonight, covering 2 different stories. 2 are more specific things, and then the others are more general concerning things that are going on with this current administration. All right, so I'll start over here on this other one, this Harvard professor. It says, Harvard professor arrested by U.S. immigration agents after firing pellet gun near synagogue. And I believe there's another video with this. I want to pause because I don't necessarily watch the videos on Reuters. We read the articles, but they got so many ads that I can't even find where the video usually is. There we go. And of course they want to start it. I want to stop it, so y'all bear with me while it loads so I can press pause on it. Let's see. Okay, here it goes. Here it goes. All right, so we'll go ahead and start up here at the top where it says U.S. immigration authorities arrested a visiting professor at Harvard Law School this week after he was charged with discharging a pellet gun outside a Massachusetts synagogue the day before Yom Kippur, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security said on Thursday. Carlos Portugal Gouveia, which pretty weird to name your child Portugal, even though Brazilians speak Portuguese. We talked about the history of Brazil a couple of weeks ago. They got Portuguese history, but middle name being Portugal is pretty weird. A Brazilian citizen was arrested on Wednesday by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement after his temporary non-immigrant visa was revoked by the U.S. State Department following what President Trump's administration labeled an anti-Semitic shooting incident. So keep that in mind. They called this an anti-Semitic shooting incident. That's what the U.S. Immigration and Customs called this, or Department of Homeland Security. All right. A description at odds with how local authorities have described the case. Right. So that's not what local authorities called it. The ones who actually dealt with it, but that's what either the Department of Homeland Security or the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, right? The ICE agency called it. Gouveia, an associate professor at the University of Sao Paulo Law School, who had taught at Harvard during the fall semester, has agreed to leave the country, the Homeland Security Department said, right? So he left of his own volition. He wasn't deported. They gave him a choice, and he decided to leave. All right. Gouveia's press representatives in Brazil issued a statement saying that after ICE took him for questioning, it gave him the option of leaving the country voluntarily, allowing him to return to Brazil as of Thursday. When it comes to ICE, they shipping people out like hotcakes, right? So they said, look, you can leave of your own volition, or we can make you leave. And now that's speculation on my part. It didn't say that. It just says that they gave him the option of leaving voluntarily. Cambridge, Massachusetts-based Harvard declined to comment. Right, so Harvard declined to comment. Why did they decline to comment? Gouvea's arrest came as the Trump administration pressed Harvard to reach a deal to resolve a litany of allegations it has made against the Ivy League institution, including that Harvard had not done enough to combat anti-Semitism and protect Jewish students on campus, right? Because you had, at a lot of different schools, but also at Harvard, you had protests concerning what the state of Israel is doing, right? Pro-Palestinian protests. A lot of those, a lot of institutions around the U.S. in general, but especially the Ivy League institutions. Harvard has sued over some of the actions the administration has taken against it, leading a judge to rule in September that the administration unlawfully terminated more than $2 billion in research grants awarded to the university, right? So they fought back against the Trump administration a little bit, but Trump has, as it says, terminated more than $2 billion that Harvard Law would receive, right? So that's part of Trump's power as president. He can control federal funding, right? He can, like literally he can, but it's disputed whether it's lawful for him to or not. Police in Brookline, Massachusetts arrested Gouvea on October 1st after responding to a report of a person with a gun near the Temple Beth Zion on the eve of the Jewish holiday Yom Kippur. Gouvea said he was using a pellet gun to hunt rats nearby, according to a police report. Right, so why he's hunting rats is beyond me. Probably just because like he has a bunch of he's staying in a rat infested place. That's probably what it is, but it's still kind of odd that this Harvard law professor is, got a pellet gun shooting rats. He reached a deal last month to resolve a charge that he illegally discharged a pellet gun, under which he would serve 6 months of pre-trial probation and pay $386.59 of restitution. Other charges he faced for disturbing the peace, disorderly conduct, and vandalism were dismissed as part of the deal, right? So now I'm speaking a little bit from experience here, but if you've been arrested before, you know that when you're arrested, the police will slap you with a bunch of charges, right? They'll just add to whatever it is, whether it's true or not. They will just throw a bunch of charges at you, and then maybe one will stick, right? Or, you get to the courtroom and then they tell you that, we're going to dismiss this, this, and this, but you're still going to be charged with this. And because of that, you're going to have to either pay this fine or do this or that, right? And it appears that's what they did here. Just slapped him with a whole bunch of charges, and one stuck, right? Which was illegally discharging a pellet gun. So he had to pay a little fine, $386, and serve 6 months of probation. Despite the Trump administration's claims, this is really what I wanted to get to. The Temple Beth Zion has previously told its community members that the incident did not appear to have been fueled by anti-Semitism, a view shared by the Brookline Police Department, which investigated the matter. Right, so even the Jewish community up there is saying that it wasn't a hate crime. It wasn't anything fueled by anti-Semitism. He wasn't shooting at us. The temple has said that police informed it that Gouvea was unaware that he lived next to and was shooting his BB gun next to a synagogue, or that it was a religious holiday, right? So the Jewish community there, the police there, they're all pretty much saying that, well, this is not anything racially motivated, right? Yet the Trump administration is saying, yeah, he's doing anti-Semitic attacks, right? And so they made him leave the country. Or they give him the option to voluntarily leave the country, right? So concerning this Supreme Court decision, it says the Supreme Court to decide legality of Trump move to limit birthright citizenship. All right, so let's look into this one. It says the Supreme Court agreed on Friday to decide the legality of President Trump's directive to restrict birthright citizenship in the U.S., a contentious part of his efforts to curb immigration, and a step that would alter how a 19th century constitutional provision has long been understood. So Trump has even said in the past that birthright citizenship, right, the 14th Amendment, was originally meant to make slaves citizens, or rather the descendants of slaves citizens, right? That was the whole point of that passing, right? And so him trying to revoke that would mean what? Just basically anybody that's born in the U.S. doesn't necessarily make them a citizen, right? They could revoke citizenship from whoever. If he takes away birthright citizenship, he can take away citizenship from whoever, because you wouldn't have to be born here to be a citizen, or rather, you're not a citizen just because you were born here. The justices took up a Justice Department appeal of a lower court's ruling that blocked Trump's executive order telling U.S. agencies to recognize the citizenship of children born in the U.S. if neither parent is an American citizen or legal permanent resident, also called a green card holder. Right? So whether they're a citizen or a green card holder is irrelevant in this if he can get rid of birthright citizenship. The lower court ruled that Trump's policy violated the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment and a federal law codifying birthright citizenship rights in a class action lawsuit by parents and children whose citizenship is threatened by the directive. So he's at least what the talking point is that there are a lot of people who come over to this country illegally, and then they have children, right? And because of that, their children are citizens because they were born in the U.S., which, yeah, that's kind of how it works. That's kind of how it has always worked since the 1800s. The justices are expected to hear arguments during their current term and issue a ruling by the end of June. They did not set a date for the arguments. And if this particular Supreme Court can be, what's the words I'm looking for here? If the history of this current Supreme Court is anything to go off of, then they're going to take his side on this, because more often than not, they do take his side on this. Though there are some immigration things where even the Supreme Court was like, Trump's going too far. So I guess that still remains to be seen. The Republican president signed the order his first day back in office on January 20th as part of a suite of initiatives. Suite of initiatives. That might mean sweep. Maybe they should have used the word sweep there. He has pursued during his second term as president to crack down on legal and illegal immigration. Right, so I like how they specifically said he's trying to crack down on legal immigration as well, because he is. Right, we talked about it last week, how he used the lock and wall incident to crack down on legal migration as well, because he's the one who let him in. So, well, Biden let him in. Trump approved him being here. Trump's policies toward immigration had been among the most contentious aspects of both his terms as president, with critics accusing him of racial and religious discrimination in his approach, and that is pretty apparent if you look at what's going on. The 14th Amendment has long been interpreted as guaranteeing citizenship for babies born in the United States, but the Trump administration has argued that the provision does not grant citizenship to the babies of immigrants who are in the country illegally or whose presence is lawful but temporary, such as university students or those on work visas. This case will have enormous consequences for the security of all Americans and the sanctity of American citizenship. The Trump administration looks forward to making its case on the issue of birthright citizenship on behalf of the American people. White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson said, yeah, not all the American people, though. Not the ones who are here illegally or that were born to illegal parents, evidently. No president can change the 14th Amendment's fundamental promise of citizenship, said Cecilia Wang, National Legal Director of the American Civil Liberties Union, which is representing the plaintiffs. We look forward to putting this issue to rest once and for all in the Supreme Court this term. Birth tourism. The administration has said that granting citizenship to virtually anyone born on U.S. soil has created incentives for illegal immigration and led to birth tourism, by which foreigners travel to the U.S. to give birth and secure citizenship for their children. which, maybe, maybe not. Probably some people do that. I don't know how many it is necessarily, but most people in general who come here, whether they have kids here or not, come here for a better life, right? To make more money generally, to have a better standard of living, right? To enter the workforce and do, that sort of thing. And usually immigrants, they send money back to their families wherever their families are from. That's just how it works, you know. That's just how it has been. That's how it is. Um, but as I said earlier in the article, it's racially motivated. We'll talk about that a little bit. These where did it say that he is racially motivated? Up here, yes. Accuse him of racial discrimination in his approach. All right. The legal challenges. Where's that? The legal challenges appealed by the Justice Department concern one lawsuit filed by the states of Washington, Arizona, Illinois, and Oregon, and another filed in federal court in New Hampshire by plaintiffs who sued on behalf of a nationwide class of people affected by Trump's order. In July, the San Francisco-based Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals sided with states. Also in July, Concord, New Hampshire-based U.S. District Judge Joseph LaPlante let the plaintiffs in that case proceed as a class, allowing Trump's order to be blocked nationally. The Supreme Court on Friday decided to hear the class action case only, not the one brought by the states. So I wonder if there's a reason behind that, as in they're going to side with Trump and they already know they will. The Supreme Court took up the case before a Boston-based federal appeals court had a chance to review it, a signal of the gravity of the legal divide and the need for the Supreme Court to definitively settle the matter on a national basis. The 14th Amendment's citizenship clause states that all persons born or naturalized in the U.S. and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. The 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868 in the aftermath of the Civil War of 1861 to 1865 that ended slavery in the U.S. Right, again, so even Trump admitted in the past that, the 14th Amendment was originally intended and designed to give slaves and their children citizenship, whereas they were not citizens beforehand. The administration has asserted that the phrase subject to the jurisdiction thereof means that being born in the U.S. is not enough for citizenship. Citizenship is granted only to the children of those whose primary allegiance is to the U.S., including citizens and permanent residents, it has argued. I thought America was supposed to be the land of freedom. Why do you have to pledge allegiance to the U.S.? Why do you have to be, why do you have to have allegiance to the U.S., right? Can't you also be a dissenter of the U.S. and still be a citizen? Evidently not. Not under this current regime. Such allegiance is established only through lawful domicile, which government attorneys define as lawful permanent residence within a nation with intent to remain. An 1898 precedent, the challengers said the Supreme Court already settled the question of birthright citizenship in an 1898 case called U.S. v. Wong Kim Ark, which long has been interpreted as guaranteeing that children born in the U.S. to non-citizen parents are entitled to American citizenship under the 14th Amendment. The challengers also point out that Trump's order violates a law Congress passed in 1940 that was subsequently included in the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952. That measure codified the citizenship clause's language and also adopted what was by then the well-settled understanding that the 14th Amendment promised automatic birthright citizenship. The birthright citizenship fight had landed at the Supreme Court already once this year. After lower courts halted Trump's order, the administration took the matter to the Supreme Court to challenge the power of federal judges to issue so-called universal injunctions preventing presidential policy from applying against anyone, anywhere. The Supreme Court, in a 6-3 ruling powered by its conservative majority, issued a ruling in June, blunting the power of federal judges, but did not resolve the legality of Trump's directive. The ruling left open the possibility for courts to grant broad relief to states or to individual plaintiffs through class action lawsuits. The Supreme Court has sided with Trump in a series of decisions this year, allowing various policies to take effect after they were impeded by lower courts that cast doubt on their legality. Among these policies were Trump's revocation of temporary legal protections on humanitarian grounds for hundreds of thousands of migrants, deportations of migrants to countries other than their own domestic immigration enforcement raids, right? So the reason why I'm bringing this out on immigration, I know we talked about it last week, and I tend not to talk about the same topics from week to week, but I found that case with the brother from Brazil interesting, and the fact that the Supreme Court's talking about the whole birthright citizenship question, or at least sometime in the next few months, also was related to that. So let's get the scriptures. It is racially motivated. It is. But as I've been saying, it's not directly against Latinos. It's not directly against Muslims. It's not directly against black people. It's Edomites versus Israelites. Trump is the embodiment of Edom. He is the embodiment of Esau, the brother of Jacob, all right, who detested God and his people. It was only really focused on the now, was not looking forward to the promises of the blessings, and therefore he give up his birthright. Ironically, he give up his birthright, which was the inheritance of promise, the inheritance of the promises from Abraham to Isaac. If Esau would have been spiritually minded, so to speak, he would have received that and understood that. But instead, he sold it to Jacob for a morsel of meat, right? Because he didn't care about God. He didn't care about the blessings that God had promised to his fathers, all right? And because of this, because Jacob got the blessing instead of Esau, even though Esau originally sold it to him, Esau has hated Jacob, all right? And I speak more of the people instead of just the individual persons, all right? As in, like, Esau himself made up with Jacob. Like, they were brothers. They kissed and made up, so to speak. They ended peacefully between both of them. But the people groups that came from these people have always been at war with one another, always been at odds with one another, particularly provoked by Esau's side. And the as it says here, Ezekiel 35, Lord forgive me, Ezekiel 35 in verse starting with 1, moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir, and prophesy against it. So Mount Seir. What is Mount Seir? In Genesis 36, it tells us about Mount Seir. I forget the verse, but we'll look at the chapter. I think it's 36 and 1. Could be 36 and 8. Somewhere around in there. Let's see. Genesis 36. Is it verse 1 that I'm looking for, or is it on down? No. 36 and 1, it says, Now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. That's verse 1. But verse 8, it says, Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. Right? So you can use the terms Esau, Edom, or Seir interchangeably. All right? Esau meaning hairy, Edom meaning red, and Seir is the word for hair in Hebrew. All right. So back to Ezekiel 35, it says, Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir, and prophesy against it. And say unto it, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out my hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. All right. It says, I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, meaning a never-ending hatred, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, and the time that their iniquity had an end. Right? So excuse me. So Esau is the progenitor of the, you want to call it the white race, right? The Caucasian race, whatever. The progenitor of the European colonial empires, prophetically. That was all Esau. That was all Edomites. Of course, out of those European colonial empires came America, right? America is the end result of that, right? America is an extension of Rome. Rome kind of got a rebirth during the Renaissance. And with that, the end of that was America, the great whore, Babylon the Great. All right, that's where we're at with this. All right, so it says, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, right, a never-ending hatred, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end, right? So God said, look, I was fed up with the sin of the children of Israel, and so I put them into captivity, right? Sent Esau against them. But because you have used your perpetual hatred for this, right, meaning you never stop hating them, therefore, as I live, saith the Lord God, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Sit thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Right? So it's about a perpetual hatred. That's what it's about. It's not about, oh, well, they're coming in taking American jobs. No, actually, if you look at it, the economy, the jobs markets, especially in places like construction and like farm work, America can't really survive without the immigration. All right, especially Latino immigration. The structure of America cannot survive without it, right? So this idea that, they're coming in, taking American jobs and doing all this crime or whatnot. And if you look at the statistics, natural born Americans, meaning people who are born here, are more likely to commit crimes than immigrants. It is what it is. Right, so like all these lies that are being told about immigration, that's not really what it's about. It's about a perpetual hatred that Esau has. And as I said, Trump is the embodiment of Esau in his pride and his arrogance, in his hatred, all right? So, and his greed, all that wickedness, all right? So yeah, let me get this in Hebrews. In Hebrews, I just want this about how vile Esau was, all right? Because Esau was a wicked person. He just was, all right? Hebrews 12. And again, it's not really even about like the individual, even though the individual was vile and wicked. It's more about what has happened prophetically from the Edomites to the Israelites. All right. So it says, lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. You see that right there? So it said for one morsel of meat, right? The red pottage, all right, the raw meat. He sold his birthright for that, right? It said he was a fornicator and profane person. That's exactly what Trump is to this day, right? Fornicator, profane person. Like the scandal, one of the scandals in his first term was that he banged a porn star and paid her off, right? Like that's a fornicator and profane, all right? All his ties with Epstein, that's profane and fornication, all right? This is the embodiment of Esau, all right? Because Trump himself, obviously with him being the embodiment of Esau, he's clearly a descendant of his, all right? So with that, we'll get back to the things concerning, the prophecy concerning Esau, right? But let's go ahead and get this next story I want to talk about, which is how they're pushing war with Venezuela. They're pushing for a war with Venezuela. And it says, experts say U.S. boat strikes are illegal killings. Can they be stopped? Right? So I don't know if this is going to bring up the fact that there are many experts, as it says here, calling it war crimes, calling it, and I'm sure that's what this is about. I haven't read the article, but that's what people are calling it. They're calling it war crimes. At least 86 people have been killed in strikes on alleged drug trafficking boats that experts call illegal killings. Since early September, the U.S. has carried out at least 22 declared military strikes targeting alleged drug trafficking vessels off the coast of Latin America. And there's no... I would be willing to wager on most of these, if not all. There's no drugs on any of them. Legal experts and international officials say that the attacks, which have killed at least 86 people, are a violation of the law and represent acts of extrajudicial killing. But despite what scholars describe as clear-cut illegality, Trump's lethal campaign has shown few signs of slowing down, and critics see an alarming shift towards the use of military force against criminal activities. I was utterly shocked that the U.S. would do this, Ben Saul, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Counterterrorism and Human Rights, told Al Jazeera in a telephone interview. It shows that the Trump administration has no respect for international law or conventions around the use of force. Hey now, it's not that he has no respect for international law. He doesn't care about the U.S. laws either. He doesn't care about any kind of law. Doesn't care about the laws of God. He doesn't care about any kind of law. The situation points to a trend of impunity for powerful countries. Though there may be a broad consensus that Trump is breaking international law, it is unclear what legal or political mechanisms could halt his bombing campaign, right? Who's going to stop America from doing their malicious military actions? Right? Because this isn't the first time America has done malicious military actions. All right, the entire war in Iraq was just completely violation of international law, but it wasn't as televised. Well, I say televised. It wasn't as known. I'll put it like that because most of the things that, like for example, like the bombing of the boats. I don't know if they showed it on TV or not. I don't know how many people watch TV. I just know that Trump, he posted about it on social media. He's done that. So never have we had a president that was so blatant about what he's doing, right? Because you had Obama, he was, drone striking people over in the Middle East, who were where it was unwarranted. You had, as I mentioned, the war in Iraq, which was President Bush. Right, so you've had American presidents do this, and Noam Chomsky, he even did lectures or rather answered questions concerning all the different war crimes that presidents have done, at least in his lifetime. So pretty much all presidents are guilty of this. All U.S. presidents have been guilty of this over the past century, but this is the first president that is very blatant and obvious about it. He's not trying to hide it. He's just arrogant about it. All right. Certainly trying to rein in a superpower like the U.S. is something very difficult, Saul said. This has to stop from within the U.S. itself. Yeah, okay, good luck with that. Guardrails have been eroded. Experts say that oversight could potentially come from a number of sources. On the domestic front, the U.S. Congress has the ability to pass legislation barring military strikes or cut off funds for the campaign. Military members involved in the attacks could also refuse to carry out what they see as unlawful orders. Foreign leaders could limit or pause intelligence cooperation with the U.S., right? So there are means to dissuade such actions, and I suppose, as I said, with military members, that's more of refusing to follow orders, right? But if you don't do it, they'll just get somebody else who will do it, right? It's not like all people in the military are what's the word I'm looking for? Dissidents of Trump. I'll put it like that. Some are, wanting to do things like this. Some are expecting to do things like this. And there are certainly military members who have done very, very bad things, right? I'm not going to say that there aren't. Thus far, however, few meaningful restraints have been placed on the Trump administration. Twice the U.S. Senate has voted to defeat legislation that would have required the White House to obtain congressional support for its bombing campaign. In October, the first bill failed by a vote of 51 to 48. In November, the second was voted down by a margin of 51 to 49. On the international side, there have also been reports that the UK and Colombia considered whether to stop sharing intelligence from the Caribbean with the U.S. But officials from both countries have downplayed those reports, with Colombian Interior Minister Armando Benedetti calling the situation a misunderstanding, which is odd because I've seen the Colombian president, I believe it was the Colombian president, come out and give a speech talking about they'll stand with Venezuela. So maybe they're in a situation where they want to play both sides. I don't know. Other mechanisms meant to assess the legality of the Trump administration's military actions have faced political pressure. News outlets such as CNN and NBC News reported that U.S. military lawyers, known as Judge Advocates General or JAG officers, who questioned the legality of the bombing campaign were sidelined or fired. And see, that's the thing that the Trump administration has been doing. Specifically with the Trump administration, I'm sure it has been going on for a while, but getting rid of military members, military officers, whether it be generals or privates or whatever, getting rid of people in the military who will not do what America wants them to do, basically. Getting rid of certain military individuals that they do not like. I've noticed a pattern of that by various means. I'll just put it like that. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has previously said that he does not want military lawyers acting as roadblocks to Trump's policies. You see that right there? So the they call themselves the Secretary of War, or Pete Hegseth calls himself the Secretary of War, but and you know the Trump administration calls it that. But everybody who is a dissident of Trump says Secretary of Defense. But they said, look, we don't want military lawyers acting as roadblocks to Trump's policies. That's crazy. And yeah, this next quote, it kind of sums that up. Military lawyers are only roadblocks if you want to break the law, right? So like that's kind of their job, right? Is to tell you, like an accountant's job. If you have a personal accountant, which I'm not saying that I do, because obviously I do not, but if you're rich enough to have a personal accountant, their job is to stop you from spending money, right? Because they are watching over your funds, right? Making sure that you can keep money, right? So that would be a roadblock. They're only a roadblock to you if you want to spend your money, right? Same way military lawyers are only a roadblock to you if you want to break the law. If you weren't breaking any laws, military lawyers wouldn't have anything to say to you, right? The same way that if you weren't spending any money, your accountant wouldn't have anything to say to you. Said Sarah Harrison, an analyst at the International Crisis Group. Harrison previously served as an associate general counsel at the Department of Defense, where she advised the military on questions of international law. She said the Trump administration has deliberately weakened institutional norms and legal safeguards meant to prevent the abuse of military power, which that in of itself is laughable. I mean, Trump may be taking it to the next level, but military always abuse their power. Yeah, and I guess more accurately, what I'm thinking of is executive agencies abusing power, but the military has also done it. They have established a blueprint to direct the military to commit an unlawful order without resistance, she said. The guardrails inside have been eroded. Numerous laws, however, exist to prohibit extrajudicial killings like those Trump is currently carrying out in the Caribbean Sea and Eastern Pacific. Wow, okay, he's doing it in the Pacific as well. That might be where Colombia is more involved, right? Because Venezuela doesn't have access to the Pacific. So maybe Central American boats, I don't know. I haven't heard anything of the Eastern Pacific bombings. It says unlimited authority is the title of this one. Article 2 of the UN Charter, for instance, largely prohibits countries from using force internationally, barring an act of self-defense. The Geneva Conventions, a cornerstone of humanitarian law, also bar military violence against persons taking no active part in hostilities. The Trump administration's use of double tap strikes, where a second attack is conducted to kill survivors from the first, has raised additional legal concerns. The Hague Convention explicitly outlaws no quarter given policies, wherein soldiers are ordered to execute those who could otherwise be taken as prisoner. So I guess the like no quarter given, as in like no quarter given for survivors, right? They're against that. The Hague Convention is against that. The Trump administration nevertheless denied that any of its strikes violate international or domestic law. I don't know about that. Instead, it argues that the vessels it bombed contained deadly narcotics and that drug traffickers are unlawful combatants whose transportation of narcotics represents an attack on the U.S. What I'm kind of waiting for is, and maybe they'll never do this, but like, when are they just going to go full mask off and say, hey, we're doing what we want, and yeah, we're breaking the law on every front, but who cares? Like, because they're already doing that. Why not just come out and say it, right? I know why. It's like they're trying to cover their bases and they're trying to make sure that they don't get caught up in legalities and things like that. But they're still doing the things that are leading to everyone hating them anyway. Everyone hating the U.S. So why not just go full force in it and say, yeah, we're doing it. So what? What are you gonna do about it? Like that's pretty much what their actions are saying. Why not just say that? You know what I mean? It seems like in the next couple of years we might get to that point where they're just saying those things outright. Um, but I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see. Our current operations in the Caribbean are lawful under both U.S. and international law, with all actions in complete compliance with the law of armed conflict. Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell said the problem with that is that the people who they're bombing are not at war with them. Venezuela is not at war with them. Colombia is not at war with the U.S. So why are they? And well, the first people they bombed, I think it maybe it was like I don't know, the fifth or somewhere around in there. But it was a Trinidadian fisherman. I remember that story. There was a Trinidadian fisherman that they bombed, right? And even Vance come out and do a speech shortly after they started the bombings. And in the speech, he told a joke. He's like, "Yeah, I wouldn't want to be fishing out there right now if I were you." Like, now obviously that he was joking around, but like that's what they're doing. They're bombing anybody that they see out there that might be something. Like it's crazy. Even the first boat that Trump posted, like it clearly was not like a drug shipping vessel. There were no drugs that like exploded or there was no like puff of white dust that like exploded in that. Like it was ridiculous. So I don't know. Lawyers up and down the chain of command have been thoroughly involved in reviewing these operations prior to execution. I doubt that, honestly. But legal scholars say that the administration's claim do not hold water. Rebecca Ingber, a professor at Cardozo School of Law at Yeshiva University, who previously served as an advisor to the U.S. Department of State, said that the Trump administration has tried to erase the distinction between criminal activity and an armed attack that would justify a military response. Right? So this rhetoric that they've been using, that Trump specifically has been using for years now, is like, we're being invaded, we're being invaded, we're being invaded, right? He's using these war terms so that he can take military action. Even though there is no invasion, even with the drugs, as it says here, that's criminal activity. That's not like an act of, it's not an act of war. But I mean, going back historically, it was the CIA, it was the executive agency that was bringing all that in. Historically speaking. She compared the administration's reasoning to the kind of garbled legal analysis an AI assistant like Grok might produce. Well, they might have used Grok to come up with responses. It feels to me that some political actors inside the executive branch have taken all of the statements and memos about the use of force over the last 25 years, jumbled up the words, thrown them into Grok, and asked it to come up with a legal argument, said Ingber. They think they can throw around words like armed conflict and terrorist, and that if they label someone as such, it can give them unlimited authority, she added. And this is what the U.S. has always done, at least over the past 50 years. And they're still doing it. Like, I say over the past 50 years, but like they did it with Vietnam as well. So like this is what, and I keep saying like Trump is the embodiment of ESAU, not as in like he is the only one who's ever done these things that he's doing, but more as he's the culmination of it all. And you've heard many people say, or at least I hope you've heard many people say, that Trump is not a problem, he's a symptom of it. All right? His presidency is representative of where the country is at, representative of the people who voted for him, right? Which is over half the country. He fully beat Kamala, all right? Like fully. I know it wasn't like half the country that voted for him, but he very easily beat Kamala in the popular vote as well, right? So this is what the American people want, or at least a large portion, all right? And of course, once he got into office, he's doing things that even his constituents don't like, but a lot of them do like this stuff, like the bombing of the boats, like the immigration policies, because of the perpetual hatred of ESAU. Let's see, a pliant Congress. Oh, does that mean like compliant? What do they mean by that? Trump is not the first president to spur concerns about his broad use of military force. After the attacks on September 11th, 2001, Presidents including George Bush and Barack Obama carried out military airstrikes in countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, and Yemen as a part of global war on terror, quote unquote. Quote unquote. Both men drew on congressional authorizations for military force that had been narrowly drafted to respond to the 9/11 attacks. Those authorizations were applied over time to an expanding list of organizations and conflicts. Critics, however, have argued that this growing use of military force extends presidential authority beyond its constitutional limits and has weakened oversight and transparency. Trump has continued the trend of presidents deploying the military without Congress's approval first. But it clearly hasn't weakened transparency because he's showing y'all what he's doing. He's putting the posts on Truth Social, saying, "Hey, look at this boat that I just blew up. This little fisher boat." It was pretty much what it was. Looked like a little canoe. It was bigger than a canoe, but y'all know what I'm saying. Normally, the power to declare war and authorize military action falls to Congress, not the president, and Congress retains the authority to rein in presidential military deployments. Many conservative lawmakers, however, have been hesitant to challenge Trump, who maintains a firm hold over the Republican Party. Others accept the administration's depiction of the airstrikes as an anti-narcotics campaign. Only 2 Republican senators, Rand Paul of Kentucky and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, voted with Democrats in their recent attempts to stop the boat bombings. It's interesting that even MTG didn't. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't, because she has kind of been at odds with Trump here recently. All right, so even she's still with him concerning Venezuela and the boat bombings. From the bombing of Iran to possible attacks on Venezuela, there are some entrepreneurial figures on the right willing to criticize the administration when it carries out interventionist policies, said Kurt Mills, the director of the American Conservative magazine, which advocates for a more restrained foreign policy. But Congress is weak. Its influence over foreign policy is at a historical nadir. I don't know what nadir means in this context. There is no limiting principle. Given the reluctance of most Republican lawmakers to assert congressional authority, some experts expressed hope that voters will send lawmakers to Congress who will exert greater control over military actions abroad. But thus far, at least a majority of voters do not appear to view the current strikes with particular alarm. Which, as Americans, if it's not involving Americans, usually Americans do not care. I mean, it is what it is. America had, as it pointed out with Bush and Obama, America does this type of stuff regularly. It has been doing this stuff where they bomb people that don't deserve it, bomb people that they cannot confirm are actually even doing the thing that they claim that they have done. In a CBS News poll last month, about 53% of respondents expressed approval for the strikes against the alleged drug boats, while 47% expressed disapproval. Ingber, the Yale law professor, speculated that decades of military action overseas during the war on terror may have primed the public, to see the current strikes as normal. And I'm surprised, especially in a CBS News poll, that 53% of respondents expressed approval for the strikes. I'm a little surprised at that. But then again, it is CBS, and their reach is with older people, and that's older people probably voted more for Trump. I'm not saying necessarily that all the CBS viewers did, but I imagine their poll was with mostly older people. It's possible that this is a frog that has already been boiled, and the public has grown to accept the idea of the president using force on his say-so, said Ingber. Even in this case, against suspected criminals for suspected crimes that we don't even have the death penalty for in this country, right? So that's something to keep in mind. That, what are they saying they're doing? Trafficking drugs? Okay, bring them to prison, right? Because that's what it is in the U.S. You go to prison for trafficking drugs. You don't die, all right? But the people don't care. Hey, kill them all is what they say, usually. And yeah, that sentiment is how it is in America. Even with people that like sell drugs or whatever, they'll say kill them, right? Not everybody, but there are people that do say that. But if the war on terror has helped desensitize the public to the use of military power overseas, legal experts say the current strikes represent a radical new development, the application of wartime powers to criminal activities, right? So just killing and bombing because of it, right? For the sake of it, right? Against criminals, against people who should face trial. Hey, just bomb them, just shoot them, just kill them. That's where we at. And that's, like I said in Ezekiel 35, said, "Thou hast not hated blood, blood shall pursue thee." The president is claiming that the power to kill anyone he accuses of a crime, no questions asked, said Annie Shield, the U.S. director at the Center for Civilians in Conflict, civic and advocacy group. There is no limiting principle there. And that makes the stakes extremely high for people in the U.S. and around the world. So with that, let's get into just generally speaking of this war with Venezuela, if it is to happen. It says, what happens if the U.S. attacks Venezuela? Where are we at, Al Jazeera? You going to load up the page, or are you going to not do that? Here we go. It says, opening Pandora's box, what happens if the U.S. attacks Venezuela? Experts warn a U.S. strike on Venezuela could trigger instability rather than a peaceful transition. And that is obvious. That's what happens every time the U.S. tries to put in a different leader. It's instability or a complete dictatorship. We've talked about that in the past with Argentina. That's what happened when the U.S. overthrew their government. I forget when it was, maybe the 60s or 70s. So whoever, whether it be Al Jazeera or my provider, does not want me to look at this article very clearly. It's not even loading. It is allegedly done loading, yet here is nothing on my page. Y'all can see. So I may just want to get to the scriptures because I want to get to them anyway. It's getting past 9. But why does it not want to load this? I'm very interested in why it's not loading it. But anyway, it seems spoke too soon there. Or I was about to speak too soon. I didn't even say anything. But one more time to see if it works, and if not, I'll exit out of it. There it goes. All right. So they don't want me to read that article. It's all good. It's all good. So with that, let's get into the scriptures then. Let's get into the scriptures, because the reason that they're bombing the reason that they're bombing the boats that are in and around Venezuela and South America is because they want the oil. They want the oil of Venezuela. I even seen what was her name? Salazar? Some either somebody who's in the Trump administration or somebody who is a conservative pundit. This Salazar lady, I believe I'm saying that right. It could be something else. Something with Zar at the end. But she was saying that, hey, Venezuela got the largest oil, what's the word for it? Oil deposits. Venezuela's got the largest oil deposits in the world. Let's go ahead and go down there and take it. Let's get American businesses down there so that they can take the oil, right? And that's, I've talked about that as far as like that's Asher's blessing is the oil, as it says in Deuteronomy 33. Venezuela, that's the tribe of Asher. All right, one of the countries down there of the tribe of Asher. And also talked about Machado, when she won the Nobel Peace Prize. She was given that prize because she is the opposition to Maduro. All right, this opposition leader who is causing conflict among Venezuela, she won the Nobel Peace Prize. Why? Because she is more willing to do business with American businesses than Maduro is. So they want her down. They want her in charge down there instead of Maduro, because Maduro said, "No, we're keeping the oil for ourselves. We're not going to sell it to American companies. we're going to sell it to China or whoever else, right? So, with that, all this is leading to war. All this is leading to the fall of America. All this is leading to the fall of Esau. All right, it is what it is. And Obadiah, starting with verse 1. Obadiah's only got one chapter. Obadiah, starting with verse 1, it says, "The vision of Obadiah. Thus said the Lord God concerning Edom." As we talked about, Edom, here in these last days, is America. Obviously, it would also be like European countries and things like that. It would be the like NATO countries, the UK, and even Russia. That's all Edom. All right. "We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle." Right? So that's one of the main reasons why Trump is in power. The Lord is using him to draw all the nations together. As it says here in verse 2, "Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised." Right? So every nation, just about, especially the BRICS nations, they are coming together against Trump specifically. NATO is turning against Trump because he's turning against them. All right? They're all coming against each other. All right? They're all turning against each other. This is the reason why God has raised up Pharaoh, so to speak, and we'll get that in Romans 9 here shortly. All right? "Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised." All right? As it says, "Let us rise up against her in battle." That's the end of all this. All right? Romans 9. Let's get Romans 9. Let's see. I'll read this in Obadiah. I'll finish this out through verse 4. It says, "The pride of thy heart had deceived thee," right? The arrogance of Trump, the arrogance of Esau in general. "Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock," because in ancient times they lived in Mount Seir. Even throughout the Middle Ages, they lived in like the Caucasus and the Alps, whose habitation is high, right? Because Trump, he lived in a penthouse, right? For like his whole adult life, he lived in a penthouse, right? Trump Tower. "That saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground?" Right? They say, who can stop us? Who can stop me? Who can stop us? That's what Trump is thinking. All right. That's why he just does whatever he wants to willy-nilly. Right. So another reason why Bibi Milikowski, right? Because he's not Netanyahu, he's Milikowski. All right. He did all that he did. He's doing all that he's doing over there with the Gazans, with the Palestinians, because he says, who can stop me? Who shall bring me down to the ground? "Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle," look at the symbol of America, the bald eagle, all right? "And though thou set thy nest among the stars," right? When they landed on the moon, what they say, the eagle has landed, all right? The moon is obviously among the stars when you look up in the night sky. "Thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord." So God said, I'm going to bring you down, all right? And you see that in Romans 9 as well. Romans 9 is a very beautiful chapter. Romans 9 is one of those chapters that kind of encapsulates the entire Bible in one chapter. I won't necessarily read the whole chapter, though it is lovely, though it is wonderful. I guess I'll start with verse 10 for the context. "And not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one, even by our father Isaac, for the children being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, that the purpose of God, according to election, might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth." Right? So it's not anything personal. It's not about emotions in this situation. All right? It's about promise. It's about judgment. All right? It's about God's predestination, about his election, as it said there. "It was said unto her," unto Rebekah, "the elder shall serve the younger." All right, and as it is written, I'll go ahead and read this. "Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated." Right? Because God did not choose Esau, he chose Jacob. All right, the elder, which was Esau, shall serve the younger, Jacob. And that's how it's going to be in Christ's kingdom. All right. That's why it had to be on this side of the Gulf. That's why it had to be, the Edomites coming through and conquering everything and shedding much blood in the process. All right. Putting the people into captivity. It had to be that way so that it could be the reverse way in God's kingdom. All right. And just to show that, in 2nd Esdras, because people in America don't really like talking about how, and when they do talk about it, they don't talk about it truthfully, how America was gotten. They don't like to talk about the European colonial empires that existed before America and how that happened, how all that came about. I say that most people don't like talking about it, like white people don't like talking about it because it exposes like the history of like villainy of America, and they like to praise America, right? But also black and brown people don't like talking about it because it's a sensitive topic when you talk about like slavery and the captivity of the forefathers, and you talk about like the harsh things that happened to the ancestors, right? But it's a beautiful thing to talk about it because it's all God's plan, all right? It's all playing out the way that he wants it to play out, all right? And the truth is, concerning God's people, the Israelites that have been scattered around the world, so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans here in the West, is that you are chosen, you will be in God's kingdom ruling. All right? So, 2nd Esdras 6, starting with verse 7. Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? Right? So what's the sign of the times is basically what Ezra is asking here. And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. When you read Genesis 25, Esau came out first, but Jacob was right behind him, holding on to his heel as he came out. All right, they were twins, fraternal twins, but Esau came out first, then Jacob's right behind him, holding on to his heel. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. All right? Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. All right? That's what all that symbolized. All right? That's what Jacob holding on to Esau's heel symbolized. Is that, okay, that's why the elder had to come first. All right? As in Esau. That's why Esau had to come first, because his kingdom came first, as in these last days. Esau's kingdom, then Jacob's. All right? That's what Romans 9 is about to go into. What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with God? Because he said he hated Esau, but loved Jacob. So is God unrighteous because he hated Esau? God forbid, meaning no. For he saith to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. God chooses who he will. And he goes on to say that. So then it is not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of God that showeth mercy. Right? So it's not of works. Yes, we must have good works, but it's not solely of works. It's about who God chooses. It's about predestination. It's about God's mercy. All right? For the scripture saith unto Pharaoh, even for the same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee, and that my name might be declared throughout all the earth. So we see that, that's the same reason why God raised up Trump. All right? So that God's power might be known throughout the earth. That's the reason why America exists in the first place. That's the reason why it has done all this evil and wickedness. The more history you look up concerning America, concerning the CIA, concerning the U.S. military, you realize it's nothing but evil and wickedness here. That's it. All right? Therefore hath he mercy on whom he will have mercy, and whom he will, he hardeneth. Right? So he hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he could get through 10 plagues. Pharaoh wanted to let the children of Israel go after like 3 or 4 plagues. But God said, no, I got to do 10 of them. I got to show the rest of the world that I'm destroying Egypt. All right? Because Egypt was the global superpower at that time. Who's the global superpower now? America. All right? And America is the last global superpower before Christ returns. All right? China think they up next. You're not up next. The children of Israel and their kingdom, Christ's kingdom, that's up next. All right. Thou wilt say then unto me, why doth he yet find fault? For who hath resisted his will? Right. So why is he punishing Esau for something that he made Esau do? Right. Because God is the one who made Esau. He's the one who made him evil and wicked. Why is he punishing him for his wickedness? Nay, but, O man, who art thou that repliest against God? Shall the thing formed say to him that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? Hath not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? Right? So you have a potter, he can make a cup and a plate. Right? Will the plate say, why didn't you make me a cup? I want it to be a bowl. No. They're just made how they're made because the Creator has power to make anything the way that he wants to make it. All right? It is what it is. All right? What if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction? Right? So he's saying, look, God has made Esau to be a vessel of wrath, to be a vessel of destruction. All right? And it is what it is. All right? He's endured this long time, this long suffering. All right? He has been waiting for a while to make his power known in the earth. You think God likes that everybody has stopped serving him? You think he likes that everyone is into idolatry, pagan customs, into self-serving, right? They're into greed and wickedness. Everybody's on the phone, on TVs, right? Everybody's dumbed down. You think God likes that? No. But he's willing to endure all this to the, and we see in Romans chapter 8, for the betterment of those that love God. All right? He's waiting on his people to come back to him. All right? Verse 23. And that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy, which he had afore prepared unto glory. Then it goes on to say, even us, whom he hath called, not of the Jews only, meaning not of Judah only, but also of the Gentiles, meaning northern kingdom and dispersed Israelites. And he goes on to prove that by saying in verse 25, as he saith also in OC, I will call them my people, which were not my people, and her beloved, which was not beloved. And when you read Hosea, that's going into the children of Israel who went off. God is calling back. All right. So with that, I hope y'all learned something. Yeah, we're here in these last days. This is a beautiful thing that we're actually beholding. We're a lot of us will get to witness the return of the Lord Jesus Christ, and it's a very wonderful thing. It's a very beautiful thing. But as he himself said, to get through that, we must go through great tribulation, and we're only in the beginning of sorrows. Don't get it twisted. We're nowhere near where, hey, I could be wrong. Right? He could come back tomorrow. He comes back as a thief in the night. But when I say we're nowhere near, we're at least a few years away from him coming back, by my estimation. No man knows the day and the hour, right? So he could come back tomorrow, for all I know. But from what the scriptures say, it's a lot more things that have to happen. We're in the beginning of sorrows. Matthew 26 and verse 6. Now, when Jesus was in Bethany, in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poured it on his head, as he said, at meat. But when his disciples saw it, they had indignation, saying, to what purpose is this waste? For this ointment might have been sold for much and given to the poor. When Jesus understood it, he said unto them, why trouble ye the woman? For she hath wrought a good work on me. For ye have the poor always with you, but me ye have not always. For in that she had poured this ointment on my body, she did it for my burial. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached in the whole world, there shall also this that this woman have done be told for a memorial of her. So with that, all praises to the Heavenly Father. We do so in the name of his only begotten Son, and we do so by his Holy Ghost. Hope y'all learned something. Happy Sabbath, happy Hanukkah, and shalom. Let God be magnified.